this is Sally Wood for Be Inspired, and today I'm going to take this little footstool to pieces. I'm going to be doing it outside because the velvet, some velvets just make my skin itch and I don't want that in the house, so I'm going to do this one outside. Take furniture apart outside is okay. Usually I like to do it inside, at least I've got AC. But I've waited till the late afternoon. It shouldn't take too long. I'm just going to take all of this off and then I can take it in to put it back together again. Only trouble being out here is I've got mosquitoes eating me now. All I'm going to do is just work around and then I'll be able to tell you if there's anything else that needs doing to it when I get there. Now I've taken out all of the old rusty tacks from here and I've got to this corner and this leg is just broken off, I think. That's not good. That one's a bit loose, that one's a little bit loose, and that one. So this one has got quite severe damage done to it. That is not good. And whoever fixed this last time knew about it because this isn't being put in straight. They have just put huge nails in and then said it was okay, which is terrible. So I'm going to have to phone this poor lady up and tell her what's wrong with her footstool. Oh dear, I don't know what's wrong with this. This is wet and it's been in my garage for a couple of weeks and I know my garage isn't wet. Oh dear, these are all rusty. It's not nice. I'm just going down the last side and there's a few old rusty tacks which I'm also going to remove. I have got to work on this today and Bad Cat's helping me. I'm going to cut through here where this has been not so well put on. The stretcher here, there, and across the front here. So let's use the Sawzall to do this. I'll just have to leave that for a minute. I've just put a piece of tape around to determine how deep I want these holes to be. So I'm going to just drill that far in. They could be deeper, but I think for such a small stool it doesn't have to be that big. Now these two are nice and clean. I'm going to work out on here which ones need to be done. You see, these ones go real deep, but that might have been done a few times. I'll have to see if I can get this one out. The best thing to do is slowly work around each dowel. That was what came out of that one. There's a bit of dowel that I cut, so it's about the right length. That'd be perfect. I'm going to use these. These are wire cutters. I think my friend calls them snips. I'm going to see if I can pull some of these out rather than just cut them. These have got a serrated edge, which means you can grab hold of what you want and then pull. It's just really irritating that they put such long. They're like 2 inches long. They're really too long for the project. I kind of don't want to leave it in because I've got a feeling that when I drill this one out, it's going to knock that. But it might drill it out enough. I'm hoping the dowel is softer than the wood around it. There we go. So that might have released it enough that I can pull this side out. Okay, I'm going to have to snip that off as low as I can. I wish I didn't have to leave all of this in, but obviously I'm going to... Oops. That's not good. Upset the cat. Try not to break your windows. See, this one here is attached to here. I just can't pull that all out. So I'm going to cut that one too. This is a two-handed job for me. I just don't have the strength. The wood's so old and fragile. It really shouldn't have been treated this badly. Let's see if I can knock that through the other way. I might be able to pull it out this way. There. That one has come out. I'm just going to hammer those in. I've left some of the dowel in. So I obviously came over slightly. I'll see if I can get this bit of dowel out as well. So I can use that. It's not the best job, but I think I can work with that. I've got 2 dowels here. I don't know if I can pull that one out. You see, again, this has gone through. That's a good 2 inches. Ridiculous. And it's caused this to come off. See, that one just pulled out. That makes a big difference. I'll pull that one out as well. Well, I can't pull it out. I'm just going to cut it. I'm going to have to just leave that piece in. But I'm going to take all of these pieces out and tidy it up before I decide what to do with it. So I'm just going to put a bit of glue on there. And I'm going to attach this piece because that's going to stabilise the bits that need to go in here. I'm just going to do that. I'll wipe up the outside so it doesn't cause a problem. I've just cut my piece of wood for the new stretcher and I'm going to pop it along here level with the top because that's where I want it. And then I'm marking the centre along here and here for where the downs need to go. So having got those marks, I'm going to mark across there and again there. Then I'm going to measure halfway across. There would be the centre of where the dowels need to go. I'm sure this is not the safest way of doing it. That looks pretty straight. So I'm putting the points on the cross hairs. I think that'll do. Now I've got to do the other end. Now ideally you should have this piece of wood clamped, but I don't, as you can see, so I'm going to do it very carefully. The other thing is that I usually get a friend or my ex-husband to do things if I can't do them, but we're in lockdown and I don't want to be messing with anybody, so I'm having to do it on my own this time. If I hurt myself, I promise I won't swear. At least I've got the tools. That should do it. So I'm going to make dowels to fit there and then onto here. Now just remember, you can always knock nails back through like that and then use pliers. I'm going to use these because they've got the serrated edge, and then just ease it out like that once you got so far. I'm just going to see what I can do with this. I mean, I really didn't know that this was this badly treated. If I can do more to get it right, I will, but I'm not going to worry too much. After all, it's been like this a long time, way before I got my hands on it, that's for sure. And she just wants it to look as good as I can make it. She wasn't very happy with the way the original upholsterers had done it, so I think if I can just make improvements on it, she'll be happy. All right, so this is now clear. Now I've just got to start putting my dowels in and gluing them. So these ones can go in here. Put plenty of glue in if you can. There's my 2 dowels to go in here. I hope they work. I didn't think to dry check this side. And I'm going to just put some glue in the top end here, and then just a little bit across here, and put those dowels on here. Hopefully I've done it exactly where it needs to be. It can rest there. It's no harm if it's just sitting there for a minute. All I'm going to do is knock this one. So now I'm going to just put some glue in here and across like that. I'm going to move this so I can do it to the other side as well. I really can't do it any worse than people did before. That's the way I look at it. And then I'm going to just put glue and doweling in this side, and again like that. Short dowels on this side like that, and my long dowels are going in on this side like this. I'm going to hammer those in, make sure they're secure. I'll just ease those in. Now I've just got to ease this side in. Just took a little bit of persuasion. That's all it was. Now the stretcher on here doesn't match at all. I have to work out how to get these stretchers back into place so that they actually hold everything. Because it's a small item, I think it will hold itself into place. I'll let that set up for now while I decide what to do about this one, which is just totally naff, and ease these ones so that they will actually fit where they're meant to fit. So I'm going to pull these nails out. I've actually decided to cheat, so I'm going to re-web it. That will actually pull everything in and hold everything where it needs to be held. I'm going to web it the same way as usual. Do one end first, fold it over so that it doesn't fray. Pop these prongs in. You sometimes have to readjust them, so don't be surprised if you put them in and then have to redo them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull that in. Doesn't look like I can pull it very tight, to be honest, because that's twisting. So I'm just going to pop it there. Now with the footstool, you don't actually have to have it too tight because it's really not going to carry any weight. Just remember to weave the webbing in and out just in case one of them is loose. It just holds everything. So the last one I'm just going to pull, make it tightish so it sounds even, and secure that one too. This will hold it instead of me using clamps. We're on lockdown, so I'm making the best of what I got. But I'll still let this set up overnight. I'll just pop that there. I found a piece of foam. It's not quite long enough, but it is slightly wider, so I'm going to measure that off. This strip here can go on the end here. I'll level that up like that, and I'm going to draw a line across. I'll even it up, and the 2 of my nails came out, so I need to knock those flat. Nice thing about having projects is you usually get things left over. I made that 1 3/4, and I'm just going to make that the same. Should be enough, I think. With a kitchen knife, I'm going to just cut along my line. Try to keep the blade straight, otherwise you'll end up with a wonky line. Now I'm going to just pop that at the back there and that at the front. So I'll just take that little square off. I'm just going to glue this. I'm going to pop this on the end here. Let that set up before I start. So the top is 16 inches. So I've got to cut that at 17 and across at 20, so that's 21. So 17 by 21. I can't use the selvage, so I'm going to cut the selvage. What I need is a piece cut at 21 inches so that I have the 1/2 inch piping. Actually, I think I'm going to cut it at 21 1/4. Just give it a little bit more of an allowance, but I can change that when I look at it in a minute. Just going to cut up here, and all I'm doing is lining the end of the ruler where I've cut it off, and then I'm cutting up to the 21 1/4 here. But this isn't very straight, so I'm actually going to cut it at 20 here, and then I'll cut back. I do want it level, so I am actually going to draw a line through here, but I will make sure that that's where it needs to be. So I don't usually draw lines. I don't want to have a wonky pattern. I'm just cutting this up. That's the top cut, and then again I'm going to use this top here to cut up. Just cutting this back to 17 1/4, and this can be used as piping, not a problem. Mark the halfway mark along the side seam here, because the border won't go all the way around. I'm going to have to put joins in it, so those are there. And then it's difficult to say which is the way up. I think this is up. So I'm just going to cut a centre mark here on the front, so I know that that's my front. 2 lengths at 2 inches wide to go for piping, and then 2 at 1 1/2 inches. So we should be fine for this. It doesn't quite go round, and I've got a spare to add on if necessary. But the 2 inch one is to go at the bottom of the stool, as it needs a little bit extra flange for being stapled in, and the 1 1/2 inch ones are to be sewn in. It just makes it easier if you cut them the right sizes to start off with. It's sticking nicely, and that fits on there perfectly. The height of this, I'm going to go from here, which is 6 inches, to the bottom. Actually, I'm going to make it 7 inches, so I've got enough to pull round underneath. I need to pattern match. So this is the front border. I've got a nick in there. I'm literally going to fold that up 1 inch, and I'm going to pin that into place like that all the way along, and hopefully everything will go into place as it should. I think I found a part that I can use for this. If I go all the way to the top here, I don't have enough of this pattern, so I'm going to go down a pattern, lay that on top like that, line that there, and cut. I'm going to have to cut it in sections because I don't want to cut into the fabric that I've folded. This will allow the pattern to follow. So I'm just going to cut there to there, and I'm going to move it along. The top half here I can use for piping or whatever else needs to be used for. And here again I'm just going to pop that level with there and level with there, and I'm just going to cut all the way across this length, and this will give me the top of the band. This is the top, so I'm just going to measure down 7 inches for the band and cut that all the way across now. Then I've got one strip for the band. The other one I'm not going to match up too much because I can't match the sides very easily. I've just cut this piece for the front, and I'm going to lay that on here and see if I can get pattern match out of here as well. As long as it's close, because I'll be pulling it in tight, it's not like it has to be perfect. And then I've got both sides of the border more or less matches. I'll say more or less, it won't be perfect, but it'll be better than not at all. And I'll go as far around as I can, because all I need is like 1 1/2. I am going to make up some piping, and I'm going to put the first layer face up, second layer face down, like that. I'm going to do it on a 2.6. I'm going to sew from this corner to this corner. Trim that back to about 1/4 inch. Now, I like to use a piping foot. It has a groove in it, like that. It just holds everything in place. Got the piping cord. I'm going to just lay that in there. Fold the piping around and pop that underneath. I usually put it about 1 inch back from the outside edge to start off with, and then there's enough fabric under there. Do the initial sewing on the longest stitch because you don't have to be nice and tidy. Sew to the end, or as long as you need it. As you get to the join, open it out. Now the thicker the fabric, the more you've got to leave on there because it's awkward to do. But once that's finger pressed out, just fold it on over. Sure it's nice and smooth, and then just go on through. I'm actually going to start the piping on one of the short sides. Start here. Got a good section there. Leave it on the longest stitch. I'm going to run the raw edge of the piping flange along the raw edge of the top here. It just gives me an oomph bigger. It's really not very much, but it should be enough to pull everything over the frame. I've already cut my 45 in there. Twist everything round and then pull that in. Pop that down. I'm just going to carry on sewing all the way around. I'm going to trim this back because I'm going to join it. I'm going to allow a generous 2 inches like that. I'm going to unstitch here. You can use the scissors to cut this back. So that's that side. Do the same on the other side. Now the next thing I'm going to do, it doesn't always show up very easily on some of these videos. I'm just going to fold that back like that, so it gives me a 45-degree angle. Just cut that down there. Fold that across like this. I let it run along the outside edge like that and then cross that over. And here's the end of there. So I need at least a 1/2 inch, so there's my 1/2 inch. And if I fold that back 45 degrees, you need to make sure that they both go the same way. If they go in opposite directions, you've got trouble. So I'm just going to fold that back as well and trim that back. Change my foot back to a straight one, and I'm just going to reline that up like that. Pinch where the center is, and it's a little bit less than 1/2 inch, it's about 1/4 inch. So I'm just going to put that on there, just slot that underneath like that. And sew from corner to corner. It's on a 2.6, so it's quite a small stitch. Pull that out. It should fit in without any wrinkles, and it will. Change the foot back out for the piping foot. Just slotted that back underneath, extended the stitch to a 5. As I get to the center, I've opened the seam and I've made sure that that is flat. Now sometimes as it goes over the piping, it twists, so just double make sure that that is absolutely flat. I cut the under piping back. Now I usually do that as a 45-degree angle. Mark where the top of the piping is and do the same 45 degrees from that mark. And that should slot behind each other, which they do. And then I'm going to just carry on sewing and pull that into a straight line. Make sure all your threads are on the outside and carry on sewing. Because I want to put a join on the side, which I marked there, I'm going to pop that round here and then line up top of this pattern with here. And then by rolling over about 1/2 inch of the top here, I can line it up and it will create the illusion that it just comes all the way down and follows through. That's a pattern match. So I'm going to take a pin it from the other side so I can sew it into position right over, because I'm going to be sewing from the top down onto the border. This part of the paisley goes up and into there, which lines up nicely like that. So I'm going to just mark that into place too, and then I'll be able to start sewing it into position. All I'm going to do is line up where my pins are, take them out, double check everything. I know I put pins in, but I always double check as well. That corner's there, which is that corner there, so that should be exact. Slot it under the sewing machine foot, and again all raw edges together. Move the needle over so it's closer to the piping if you're able to do that, and then sew. Before I get too far around, I will actually open it up and have a look. If I don't like it, I'll undo it. Yep, that's just where I want it. So I'm going to just carry on round. Some patterns I do that with, some I don't really worry, but this is quite a distinct pattern with the paisley and the flowers, so I want to make sure it's perfect. And hopefully as I go on round, it will all match. Now, as I come to the corner, I'm going to cut 45 degrees in on the outside edge. I line it up with the corner of the cover, peel everything back and go in. But it's only like 1/4 inch because I don't want to go too far in, otherwise it will cause the fabric to unravel. Needle down, foot up and twist. And make sure all of the loose ends are in, and I've lined it up again with the raw edges together. And I'm going to just work my way all the way around. I'm going to quickly work out how much fabric I need to go around the corner. So from there to here and across. So that's plenty. And then I'm going to pattern match. So I've just laid my pattern over the top. I'm going to cut the one underneath back to here. So So that's the piece I need. And now I'm going to show you how to do this part. Now when you pattern match, if it's curtains, you go bottom to top. But this is only a short distance, so I'm going to fold over and I'm going to work from the top to the bottom. I'm going to fold that over about 3/4 of an inch and iron that in a straight line. I try to make it as sharp as you can. There's an art to pattern matching. When I line up the fabric, I line it from this side like this, and I'm a little bit generous because when I'm going to be looking underneath is to make sure that everything lines up when it's at like right angles. If it lines up at right angles, then I've got it in the right place. And I'm going to reduce that to a 3 stitch. I have a little red arrow here, which is my sew line. So all I'm going to do, pull that back slightly, line this up at right angles. Don't pull it over too far, otherwise you'll be short on the front side. That under the fold that I put on there is my sew line. So I'm going to start with a couple of forward and backs. If that's slightly wrong, it's underneath the seam where the piping is. You pull all of that back slightly, pinch hold of the bottom, because basically the tautness is top to bottom here. Fold that into place and then sew. Reverse and forward stitch at the bottom there. Now with a bit of luck, if I open this up and fold all of that back, I'm hoping it's almost there. That's in line. This bit here is just slightly out here, but the rest of it's gone in. That might be because there was a slight difference anyway. So look along here, and this comes here. So it doesn't quite come over that. Would you stop that, you bad girl? So yeah, I think that's close enough. I could be really fussy and redo it 2 or 3 times, but I think that's fine. It's close enough that it's not going to be a problem. All I'm going to do is pop this back on the piping foot, adjust everything to where I need it, and carry on sewing. Now when I get to the point where the seam is, I'm going to just open the seam along the back, like that, and then pop that across and sew it into place. Okay, so now I've got to the corner here. This is my last corner, and pull that into position here. I have a midway mark here, which I'm going to use. I'm just going to sew towards that for the moment. And I'm going to stop about 2 or 3 inches away from it. So all I'm going to do is pull it to the corner here and round like that, and pull it really hard. I'm going to start sewing from here down and around, and hopefully that will just pop into place. Line everything up. And I'm going to just sew down to that corner. Before I get there, I'm going to pull this fabric out so it's straight. That's really quite important. And I hope I don't have to do this twice. Sometimes I do. I get to my corner and clip it just like you usually do, about 1/4 of an inch in. Carry on sewing. Needle down, foot up, pull everything into place. Wriggle it, and then just join where you started the seam and go over about an inch. That should be fine. Yeah, that went in well. Got a couple of tufty bits there, but the rest of it looks like it went in line. The join is right on this corner here. I'm not going to cut anything back on there, but I will on here, so make sure everything's flat. That's the secret. Keep everything even and roll your fold where you want the seam to go to the center of your mark here. It sometimes takes a little minute to do. I am just going to clip that here, just on the top, because I'm going to use this as the measure to go all the way down. So my cut mark is here, so all I'm going to do is line up the cut mark with the edge of the selvage, which is 6.5 inches. I'm going to move that along. I'm going to cut down to the 6.5. The reason I'm doing it this way, sometimes the fabric is stretched in funny ways, so I just want to make sure that if there's an angle to this, then I'm actually going at the right angle. I'm going to put the raw edge and the selvage together like that, and I'm going to pinch it in to the piping so it's nice and flat. And actually I'm slightly off, 1/8 of an inch off, which isn't too bad. I'm going to put a pin there while I adjust everything else out. Put the pin in and then just double check. If it looks too tight, then release it. I think that looks pretty much it. All I'm going to do is pull that down so it goes in even. And here I'm just going to put the pins sideways so I can sew over them like that. Double check again, because you're not meant to be pulling it, you're meant to just be sewing it, and if there's a little bit of give, it will go in easily. You don't want it tight, otherwise it's going to pucker the top. It's better if it puckers the size, so I'm going to reposition that. That's my sew line. Pop that sew line here. This selvage is going to run on the outside of here, which is a nice easy thing to look for. Take my pin out, just make sure everything's lined up. And make sure the needle position is in the right place, otherwise it will cinch it in too much. Forward and back, because you want to secure it, and then just sew to the end. And the last pin I'm just going to adjust as I get there, and again forward and back. Now as I pull, you'll see it's even, there's no gapping as such, so I did it in the right place. So I'm going to just seal that shut, which means I'm going to start sewing about an inch over here like that, pop it under, open the seam up so it's not all bulky, and stitch it all into place. As the seam starts going over the foot plate, it sometimes folds back on itself, so just check it, put that into position, and then over sew about an inch so you don't have to worry about the seams coming apart. Measured from the base of one side to the base of the other and across, a piece of dacron that should theoretically cover it. And then I am just going to pull this cover over the top. I'm going to line it up with the foam and start easing it down, and hopefully it will all go in. And I think if I pull that down good and hard, it will look square, which is more than it does at the moment. See if I can get the seam with the piping to go down, because that will also help fill out any loose areas, and it looks better actually. I actually don't see where my seam is. I've got a seam. Oh, here it is. I felt the seam. I couldn't see the seam. I'll make sure that that's out flat too, and that really doesn't notice. As I say, I had to look for that seam before I found it, so that's good. I'm going to measure from the center of the front back to 5.5 inches, and that is where I'm going to put my first staple. I'll pull it back and double check and come a bit further in, just a little bit, a wee tad. And now I'm going to go to another point and pull it all the way in again to 5.5 inches. I'm just going to even it between the 2 points. Sometimes that means doing it again, but it's better to be more accurate than less accurate. And so it doesn't pull, just even it out. And then I'm going to go the other way. My tape on there. You could actually put pin marks on it all the way around. And again, just pull it in the middle so it doesn't look pinched. Because we're going around the legs and it's going to be proud, I have put the sewing line on the side of the wood here, and then it won't come in and out, it'll be more even. Now coming to a leg, I'm going to cut in at an angle like that, and I'm going to pull this in to the 5.5 inches and cut back to where it needs to be cut back to. So just a wee bit further in. So I'm going to do this one first, and then the one next to it. So that's 5.5. And then clip in. Now this is because I'm going to pull this piping to the inside of the leg too, and I'm going to go the other way. And then I'm going to go on round to the side of the leg and do the same thing with the piping. And I'm going to pop the piping up like that. So I'm going to twist the piping one side down, one side up, like that. And then I'm going to pull all of this down tight. I'm not going to secure the border because I might have to wriggle that, but I am going to secure this piping into place just here. Now I'm going to do the same on the side. I'm going to just pull from the top down so it's nice and tight in. Here again, I'm going to measure it to 5.5 inches. I'm going to work towards the corner, remeasure in the middle, and back the other way. You don't want to be pulling it in too tight, because if you pull it in too tight, it means that when you get to the corners, the fabric tends to go up and down too much. Now here again, I'm going to cut up towards the corner of the leg where it joins. Push that on up, and that comes on down. With a bit of luck, all of this will pop up under there and fill it out a bit. This usually takes a little bit of working. For the corner, I'm going to pull this down so I know where my 5.5 inches is. So I've secured this one as close as I can to that corner. I'm going to cut a slight angle up to where the leg and the stretcher across there. And then I'm going to pull this side down and more or less do the same thing. Only this one I'm not going to go as far up because I'm not sure how far up I need to go. Next thing is to do is to fold that fabric around the wadding that's up there, like that. Fold it up so it's a nice clean hem line. Now with this, I'm going to cut straight up towards the stitching there, pull it round and do the same on the other side, like that. And I'm going to twist this side up and under where that folded fabric is, and I'm going to pull it very tight so it's as straight as I can make it around that corner here. There's there, and I'm going to staple there and there into the piping. I'm going to wriggle this into shape. Now on the underside, I can grab hold of this fabric and really pull it in tight and twist it around so it fits under there, like that. Do not staple the top. So I'm going to pull that fabric out of there and staple that in, and staple it under there but tightly. And then as I pull this round, this will actually come in quite flat and give a nice look as I go to the side here. Now again, I'm going to pull down the centre from here to the 5.5 inches. You have to be equal all the way around. So there's my 5.5. I'm going to work my way back to the corner here. Sometimes you'll have patterns that are really obvious, and other times you're just working with what you got. Make sure it's not puckering in between. I'm going to snip just a little bit more up there so that can be pulled right in under here, and push that back up. It's really important to try to get all of those nice and tight, otherwise it will come undone and it won't look so pretty. Now this just pulls along here. Pull this tight here. Again with the seam running on the outside of the wood, and then work toward this side the same way. So I've pulled it in as close as I can to the leg like before. Put the fabric up on that side and just guesstimate on this side, because this side can be cut later if it's different. Just got to get most of it in. Then I'm going to twist this fabric, like I had on the other legs, up and under the wadding. And as you get further around the footstool, the harder it gets. Because I didn't make it with a huge amount of spare room. Again with the piping, I'm just going to cut directly up to the stitching on that side. Pull it hard round on the wood, not over the fabric or anything. And then cut again up. And then push that up and under. Everything else will fall into place eventually. I think I'm going to have to take this stapler out. It's just a little bit too tight for me. There we go. That's eased it. Push that all up and under. Get my piping, pop that up and under as well. Just make sure that that's all in line with the bottom stretcher of your chair or your footstool or whatever you're doing this to. I'm going to just staple that in place. As I say, with this, I'm just going to pop it all up like that. Let's see if I can do a better job of it. Sometimes you do need to do that. I think I'm going to undo this one as well here. Just needs a little bit more room for me to wriggle it around. That should give me enough release on here to be able to refold everything into place, and it should look a lot better. Let's say the further round you get, the harder it gets. Now I can pull it all back in, and I'll re-measure to make sure it's exactly where I need it to be. Do the underside first, make sure it's level, and then pull in the piping. And then it's the last two legs on here. Now before I do very much more, I'm going to just measure off what I think I need, which is there to there, so at about 2 inches. There we go. On this side I did actually get it slightly wrong, but not too bad. It will still fold under. And start in the middle and pull the middle in first. Always work from the middle out, then everything will be even. Put that there. And the last side does the other thing. Last side is usually difficult as well. because everything else is pulled where it needs to be. Okay, so I'm going to eyeball it for there. Just pull that one down. There we go. That's it. I'm going to move this way first. Pull that in to here. Looks like it. On these, you don't pull to the side. You literally just pull it down straight. Otherwise, it will go in wonky. I'm going to go into this corner, which I kind of cut a little bit wonky, but I've got enough leeway to be able to pull it in, and it won't make any difference. So there's my 5.5. It's right up here, and I cut it a little bit too far down. And cut up. I'm going to push all of that back under, and I'll ease that out in a minute if I need to. Move that out of the way, and then pull this into its place. This one will go in the correct place, which is good. I'm just going to pull it down and into place too. I'm going to seal it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut that back about 1 inch, like that. Pull it across. Make sure it's tight. On the end that's loose, just tuck it down like that, so it goes in at an angle. Make sure that the hard part of the piping is still on the end before you do that. Just put a little. Now for this corner. Now I've already stapled this one into place. I didn't cut down, so I'm going to do that now. So piping I'm going to just cut down so I can twist it. That can go up. The other thing I didn't do was cut this, so that's a bit bizarre too. I just didn't cut it very far. So my piping can go back under there, nice and tight. Now I'm going to pull in this, see how tight I can get this. And again, fold that back on itself and into the corner. Make sure your piping is hard in there. If your piping's not hard in there, it's going to be awkward. I think that's probably where it needs to be. Just staple the piping in, undo the piping cord here to match the other one. Okay, so the hard piece of piping is here. I have to be more or less level. Just cut that too, like that. I'm going to push that hard up to the other one and staple it in place. And like I did on the other, I'm just going to bring that down slightly and staple that into place. And then butt those together. It will give the illusion that it's all twisted together. All I've got to do now is put the bottom cloth on. Now this join went in really well, despite the fact that I was guesstimating how that would look. And that sometimes happens if you're lucky, and if not, I might have had it slightly over and it would have been more noticeable, but people aren't going to really notice that. So that is the Footstool. I'm really pleased with them. Thank you for joining me on this Footstool project. I hope that I was able to give you some tips on how to pattern match, not only for the top and the side, but also on the side border, so it doesn't look so obvious when you've had to join fabrics together, that are easy to follow. Also how to drill out old dowels and replace them. Well, I think we did quite well on this project, and I'm hoping the lady is thrilled when she sees it, because she didn't like the way it had been done originally. Please remember to subscribe and hit the bell button if you want to see more from me. A few thumbs up would be really nice to see how I'm doing. And in the meantime, see you later. Take care. Ciao.